Welcome to Introduction to File Types. When you are assigned to do a report in school, you sit down at your computer, you open up your word processor, you bang out the report, illustrate it with the tables and the pictures as required, proofread it, and then you save it. You put a cute title on it like My Report, and then you get ready to ship it by email to your instructor. Well, your computer does a little bit of heavy lifting for you that you don't know about, because it typically puts a file extension on the end of your file reminding it what applications you use to create it. If you use Microsoft Word, your report suddenly becomes myreport.doc. The .doc on the end tells the computer that you use Microsoft Word. This becomes really important when you go to send that report via email to your instructor, because if the report just said My Report, then your instructor's computer is not going to know how to deal with that particular file. It's not going to know what document or what word processor to try to open it up in. It's not going to know whether it's a picture, whether it's audio, video. It's going to just sit there and say, okay, what do I do? So the file types become very, very important. As an instructor, you're going to have to deal with a lot of different platforms. Not everyone in the world uses Microsoft, although that is the vast majority. But even with Microsoft, you have two different variations. You have Vista and you have XP. This becomes an issue with the new Microsoft Word 2007 that came out in support of Vista. They changed the file type. It's no longer doc, it's docx. So if you want to use Microsoft Word 2007 to save a file as doc, then you have to go in and change the way that the file is saved to get it back to where it's just a regular doc file. Apple OS X and Linux can use a variety of different word processors to read doc files, but there is sometimes a little bit of compatibility issues. Some things may not be quite right, but in the vast majority of cases, it's going to be spot on. So the common file types that you have to deal with if you're going to send files back and forth are listed on the screen. One of the ones I want to bring to your attention is the RTF file format, rich text format. This is a text file format that is very cross-platform compatible. Most of the word processors out there will read and write in RTF, but they don't do it by default. You have to do a save as and then change the file type when you change the file name to RTF. This then will change the file type, and instead of being myreport.doc, it'll be myreport.rtf, and most word processors will open it up and take a look at it. So the not so common file types that you may end up running across are some of the video and some of the other audio formats. .mov, .wmv, these are both video formats. Windows folks can read MOV files, and Apple folks and Linux folks can read WMV files, but in most cases extra software has to be installed. ACC, MP4, and MP4A are all associated with iTunes. MP4B is also associated with iTunes, but it's a protected file. It has digital rights management, and so you may not be able to even hear that particular file if you don't have the proper permissions to be able to listen to it. The last ones down there, WAV, AIFF, or AU, are uncompressed audio files. A lot of applications you work with will create audio in those files. So you sit down, you record a podcast, or you record something to be put up on the web. You're not done. You have to go ahead and compress it and convert it from those file formats into MP4, MP4A, MP3, ACC, something else. You have to compress it because those file types create files that are very, very huge. and so they don't work well when they're being transferred from one computer to another. But they do work well when you're trying to create content on your own computer. Some of the platform-specific file types you'll run across are exe, which are Windows executables. You drop a Windows executable on a Linux computer or an Apple computer, and the computer just sits there and looks at you. Okay, like, what am I supposed to do now? DMG, again, with the Windows computers and the Linux computers, again, it's looking at it like, okay, what am I supposed to do with these? So file types become very, very important when moving files around, because of the fact that not everybody can read everything. One of the most common type that is cross-platform compatible is the zip files. Most everything can read zip, and in the case of OS 10 and some of the Linux platforms, they do it natively, just like the Windows computers do. Why do I care about this? As we've talked about earlier, not all file types can be read on all computers. And so if you don't pre-plan how you're going to send your content out, then you're going to run into problems, because you're going to have to figure out very quickly how to get it converted from one file type to another, so that your students or your instructors or your recipient will be able to see what you've created. There's a lot of compatibility issues, and the doc and the docx are one perfect example of those. Docx will substantially reduce the number of computers that can read that. In years to come, docx will be populated through the computer world fairly well, and again, it'll take over and it will be the new doc and everything will be fine. But right now, it's a major problem. And if you don't compress or don't use the right type of file types, then you end up creating documents that are really huge and can really slow down communications. For example, if you have an audio file that's in AIF, it could be 3, 4, 5 megs of data, whereas if you convert it to an MP3, it may be less than 500K, which is substantially less. This, as we've talked about, you drop a big file in an email, you're going to slow down the process. It's going to take forever to download. It may even fill up somebody's email boxes. Not everybody has Google with these 1 and 2 gig email boxes. Some people have email boxes that are only 15 meg. So it's really, really important that you have an understanding of file types, what they do, and how to use them. So if you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the week, and thanks a lot.